professor at the University of Innsbruck. Professor Jelen holds a degree in political science from the University of Trieste. From 1991 until 2001, he served as research professor in economic and anthropogenic geography at the University of Trieste. From 2002, he has been in his current position as associate professor in economic and political geography at the University of Trieste. In 2003, he co-founded ASIC, Association for the Study of Central Asia and Caucasus. He is also a member of the editorial board of the journal National Identities, and from 2002 until 2003, a member of the SLORI Scientific Committee at the Slovene Research Institute. And this theme of national identities is one of the themes that I think you'd like to explore this morning. I think is one of the central themes also to cultural diplomacy. How can we speak about cultural diplomacy unless we first have clarity, what is our national identity? What does it mean to be Slovenian? What does it mean to be Italian? Is the first question. Secondly, how is that identity presented abroad? Thirdly, how is that identity perceived abroad? And fourthly, what is the reality? And I think sometimes cultural diplomacy can assist in maybe bridging those gaps. Sometimes a country is presented one way, perceived another way, and the reality is even different. So I think this topic of national identities is a crucial one. So I very much look forward to this keynote address, and I'm sure we will all be inspired and provoked in many ways. So if you could please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Professor Igor Jelen. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the nice words. Actually, yeah, the reality is always different, and I think I will start from this. Let's fait accompli, this fact. I'm afraid my talk will be a little bit more theoretical than the talk of Mr. Samuel before, so a little bit more academic maybe. And I will start just from this consideration. So, as Mr. Samuel talked before, we are walking, we are dealing with a trial and error context. So, anyway, in our situation, in the context of international relations and of the communication at any level among the individuals, among the institutions, among the states, the error could mean a mistake, an irreversible mistake. So, in some contexts, we should avoid, if it's possible, the mistakes, the irreversible mistakes. So, and to be aware of this, at least we have to be conscious of this risk. Of the risk of doing irreversible mistakes in this context. So I will talk, so in the international reality, we have to consider always a sequence of contradictions which are characterizing the international dialogue, the international communication. The main contradiction, which actually the method of the cultural diplomacy try to overcome, the main contradiction, which sometimes is like I would say an invisible wall, is the contradiction between the individual interest and the common interest. So are two dimensions, two levels, which are almost impossible to overcome completely. And this is always the question of the identification process, which is a phenomena, which is an attitude which always existed in the human society, in the human civilization. So from any time, from always, the individuals, the people, the populations, they are trying to make groups, to get together, because in this way the individuals could get better capabilities in order to get solutions for the different problems which are typical of the human being's life. But in this is just one of the dimensions of the human experience. So we can always find two dimensions, the self and the other, the attitude of and the need for some belonging of the human beings, and the need for get some solidarity, for get some belonging to a wider group. And also, I mean, these two dimensions, the identification in itself and the identification in a wider group, which usually in the geography and in the history happens on different scales, on the dimension of the small group, of the dimension of the wider group, on the territory, in the culture, in the politics, and assuming different forms also, ethnical forms, linguistic forms, territorial dimension, and these all are a kind of in the literature, we find a sequence of these definitions. These are markers, identification marks, which help the individuals to overcome the original, let's say, loneliness, to get a dimension of groups. This is always happened in the human history. And so individuals use some of these markers to get in a wider group. Could be sometimes the same language, the same code, the same territory, or also other kind of marks. Usually we can distinguish between more or less two kind of marks. Marks which any individual has an intention in itself, and which usually the individuals assume in the early stage of the life. For instance, some image, also a cultural landscape. This is the dimension of the religion symbols, for instance, of some of the familiar symbols as well. And we can understand also markers of, let's say, rational character, civic character. For instance, a behavior in order to be able to negotiate in the all-day life for the several problems which characterize the life. So we can, well, the civic dimension, it's possible to be understood as something which could be changed, which could be adapted. The irrational dimension, the images which individuals usually assume in the early stage of the life. I'm not actually a psychologist, but these are not disputable, are indisputable. So we have a base of images which probably will last unchanged, will not change for the whole duration of the life. And this is always a source of contradictions, because this could be, became also a problem in the communication, in the identification of the processes, in the wider context of the individual life, social life, at the regional level, at international level. This is just a short definition to make clear what could be a source of problems in the international dialogue, in the international context. Well, now in this situation, in this reality nowadays, we can define the actual situation, let's say, well, postmodern, globalized, or borderless, or in many different terms. But anyway, is a new epoch which is consequent and which is substituting the modernist, let's say modernist epoch. And also the method and the way of making identities will change, is changing. This is the most interesting phenomena which is characterizing the nowadays reality. I will say in the whole world, not just in Italy, not just in Slovenia, not just in Austria, not just in the Central European borderlands, but in the whole European space, in the whole world, I would say. So we are changing the way of producing, of making identities. The modern identity standard was territorial, was structural, was connected to a territory, to a nation state mostly. Nowadays, we are dealing with the so-called deterritorialized identities. So, borderless world, not structural, not material linked. Also the languages are changing, also, and the codes anyway, the codes of communication at any levels. And so this is for our job, in this field of cultural diplomacy, a source of problems, because the confrontation between the different, the formation of new identity could become always also a matter of politics, a political matters, because the grouping could assume suddenly a political significance, and so also with a disrupting potential in a certain status quo, in a certain context. The appearance, the formation of a new identity could have a disrupting potential at any level in the politics, because a group usually could assume suddenly a political character, and the political character means to assume a target, a political interest, and not excluding the confrontation. And, new identities mean also new communication instruments, new codes, new way of organizing international communication. And so we are dealing with really a change in the paradigm, in the communication international paradigm. And so nowadays is the most interesting question is trying to understand what is going on, what kind of identities are forming at different level. And just to make a couple of examples, so we can, observing the nowadays reality, we can find out, we can observe a lot anywhere the formation of new identities, of new way of grouping, of new identification methods in borderland area, in state, national state area, in continental dimension, so in any situation. And this, could happen sometimes intentionally or not intentionally. And this could be, a way, could be a target for our further study. We can just try to find out, it's difficult to define really a chain, a cause-effect chain. So we exactly to define which cause is producing new identities, new nations also, new identification, but we can at least define some circumstances in which a new identity is likely to form, and furthermore, in which circumstances a new identity is likely to assume a political significance, and therefore a disrupting potential. And, we can find a sequence of context. In the literature, which I just can mention a couple of such contexts. One is, it could be reconduced to the perceived decrease of threat of menace from outside, which was one of the main arguments of the national state in the course of history in the last centuries, from late medieval time, from the time of Machiavelli and Guicciardini, which defined this, in Italian Renaissance time, defined this kind of politics. So they perceived, they decreased of threat from outside, which for the, let's say, Western-style pluralistic state in the course of modern history was identified with the threat was of the totalitarian state in many circumstances, above all in the 20th century, which was a base, a legitimation tool on the base of which the nation state, pluralistic state, based each centralization politics. So now the perception of a decreased risk from outside leave the peripheries, also the new identity, to express themselves, also in contradiction with the central state. This could be one factor. The other factor, well, is the reaction to the new ICT, information technological paradigm, communication paradigm, which is characteristic of globalization standards, so of the new borderless world. So the reaction to this losing of national identities could be, well, the revival or the reaction of local peripheral identities. This could be another. This could be defined as the two main factors of this revival of new local identities, a phenomena which we are observing now in a different level. At the moment, we will stop here, and I am ready for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Very thought-provoking lecture. I already see the first question in the front, please.
I'm Georgia Kotia from Greece, and I want your opinion about the frozen conflicts in the European area.
Excuse me, of the?
Frozen conflicts.
Yeah.
About Russia and Georgia, and about the territory of the Transnistria, and also from the very recent events in Serbia. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, my status of professor, maybe too much, maybe too less, permit me not to be involved too much in giving opinion.
Yes.
So I would say
I want your opinion as you are coming from political science.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Well, I think diplomacy could help. Depending of the scholars of the theories, the conflict, the war is possible or impossible to avoid in the human history. I cannot say here, we can avoid definitively the war in the human history. I hope so, and I think we have to work in this way to reach this target. We cannot say we can say the human conflicts, the contradiction in the human on the human political map are possibly to be solved, to get a solution with diplomatic means. I'm sure. But it takes time. And it takes the cultural diplomacy code theory needs time. It's a long-term process, longue durée, would say, like Fernand Braudel would say. So, but it's a contradiction. Well, sometimes we have to find a solution for the immediate, for the circumstances, for a moment. And as I read in the literature, we cannot find really a solution for this ambiguity, for this contradiction. So between times takes the diplomacy and the local the conflicts, the time of the conflicts. It's clear what I say. So we have just to work with diplomatic tools and try to disseminate, to let the different part talking about and to find a better solution.
We heard before from the professors in the previous day different point of views of European identity. I would like to have your comment about, against you, is it necessary nowadays to have or to create a new European identity for the European people?
Excuse me? Ah, okay, but thank you. Yeah, well, this could be also, well, a solution, definitely a solution for, to find a new idea. Some authors, some theorists define the European unification process like a unicum in the human history. I wouldn't say this, because we have in the human history few other such examples of states, of nations getting together on the basis of with peaceful and founding a confederation. We have in the history always, sometimes with wars, but beside the war, also with intentional, peaceful, as a peaceful process. So this could be a long-term solution, and it will bring to a new identity, to a new political identity, to a new nation. I don't know, because these are long-term processes. We can say now, at the moment, the reaction of many territorial national states, national bureaucracies, national institutions, local, peripheral, which are not prepared, let's say, not able to face the globalization processes, to find an identification form in an intermediate level. So let's say a continental level. So European new identity could be this new form of identity of a, so not too big and not too local, something intermediate, because many states in Europe are aware that they cannot face the globalization processes alone. It's impossible. The problem of energy, the problem of migrations, the problem of, let's say, international crimes. The international crimes network are tremendous, are much more than one individual state can face. So we need these, and this is extremely important. I have this perception, above all, for small states, or for, let's say, states which perceive themselves as end-of-cycle states. So the democracy could be defined as a cycle, and many democratic states now in Western Europe, and also in Eastern Europe or in other world, are, for some scholars, at the end of a cycle. And the demonstration of this is the accumulation of a huge debt, which is not just an Italian question or a question of Greece or of Ireland, but is a problem of more or less all European democratic countries, because the democracy on the long term is accumulating debts, always, unfortunately. And so we have to try to find a solution for this. But in this context, the try and error method could be very dangerous. We can get in bankrupt before.
Thank you very much. Next question, I think, was here, please.
And I have a question, and also that goes with Dr. Samuel's talk about these European values. But I feel that is that when you create this identity, and also your project on this, especially neutralizing the immigrants, especially those who are coming as refugees and also asylum seekers, political asylum seekers. I think Europe had failed in doing that because, you know, they come and then they are posing a threat not only to, they are posing a threat to the state that they are here, whichever the state in Europe, and also bringing that same threat back to the country. For example, I'm from Sri Lanka, I'm Dani from Sri Lanka, and for example, we have seen that Tamil Tigers are being all over raising funds and sending that funds from Europe to Sri Lanka to have child soldiers. So I think that when you are creating that identity, how you, when a person comes and acquires citizenship here or anywhere else in Europe, how you feel that person is not posing a national threat, a security threat especially, to your own, when you adopt them or when they adopt a country, how you bring that project into this European new thinking of, in Europe, as he said that we need to restore European heritage and we need to think of the values, whether they are valid or not, what were the values that we had in the past in Europe is also at the moment having an impact on the other countries.
The value for individual values and the necessity of identifying in the wider group, it's a contradiction maybe without a definitive solution. The I and the we and the all together. So, because the communication is the only tool we know to overcome the situation, this loneliness situation. To get anyway, I think what we can do is to elaborate good communication, diplomatic code, for instance, and to be conscious about this. All we can do in a conference, in a university study program, with our goodwill, let's say, to be conscious about this. I don't know if I understood your question. It's okay.
You raised the context of information technology and communication in the matter of new identity. Basing on this, do you mean that virtual changes in geological territory of the world from localization to globalization will change the identity of a region or an individual?
The question is the contracts between regional and individual. Yes, also regional identity could be understood as an intermediate identity between the individual and the state. So, and also in this case, sure, we can to be conscious about this. Absolutely.
My question is also related to European identity. And my question is, what do you think of the concept of the philosopher Habermas about the emergence of a post-national identity? And could this be replaced by something like constitutional patriotism, so that we do not longer identify by our nationality or language, but by the declaration of common principles or constitutional principles, values, and symbols?
Thank you for this question, because I mentioned before Machiavelli and Guicciardini. We can be considered the founder of modernist national politics, and then with Professor Habermas, we can discover a new epoch, a new period. So I think it's just our work to go in this direction, to try to imagine and to pursue a society, a world with even less violence, less authoritarian attitudes, and this could be considered a target, yeah, sure. And we, besides Professor Habermas, we can mention, sure, Immanuel Kant or Kropotkin or many others, authors, utopists in the history has been considered mainly, well, before illuministic or utopian in different. But now, the situation now with in the ICT society, information communication technology, maybe this could be considered possible. Maybe this could, the human society has never been so close to the maturation of a truly cosmopolitan ideology. But these are all small provocations, or us, not say too much around.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, well, if not, then let's take this opportunity maybe to express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Igor Jelen. Thank you very much. Thank you.